Welcome everyone as we prepare for Shabbos Parshas behukosi. I'd like to share with you first a thought on the first section of the parasha. The first 11 psukim, as you know, contain the opposite of a teichacha. They contain, on the contrary, a listing of brachas, of blessings that come to Klal Yisrael in behukosi teilechu. Rav Druk, in his sefer, brings that in these 11 psukim, every letter of the Aleph Beis appears, with the exception of the letter samach, which does not appear, and that the Rokach makes note of that the samach does not appear. Reading this in Rav Druk's sefer, in the Darish Mordchai, this reminds me of the fact that the same thing is true about Bereshis, the 7 days of creation. The entire Perek Aleph of Sefer Bereshis contains every letter of the Aleph Beis, and there it includes the ender letters as well, except a samach. The samach there does not appear. Haloi davarhu. Another interesting thing is that in the many thousands of psukim in the Torah, there are only 2 psukim that begin with the letter samach. That itself is highly unusual, but only 2 psukim begin with the letter samach. The 2 psukim are Slachna la'avoin ha'om hazeh k'goydol chastecha, Moshe Rabbeinu asking for forgiveness after the story of the Meraglim, and Saru Maher Min Haderech, part of the ego. So strange that the samach appears only in connection to misdeeds, to averos that a person does. Haloi davarhu. It's a very strange thing, and needs an explanation. Adding to this is that on Tisha B'Av, our kinnis by day begin with the word suru, with the letter samach. Matter of fact, it starts with the letter samach of a kinna, samach, ayin, pei, etc. But it starts with the samach. Haloi davarhu. The samach seems to appear or not appear for some sort of a deeper meaning or understanding. I'd like to share with you a thought which I had heard, I believe, once from Rav Moshe Shapira, and the aside is the following. The samach is a letter which is a circle. If you draw a line, the line can go anywhere. It can go up, it can go down, it can go around, it could twist and turn. When you draw a circle, no matter how much you twist and turn, you come back to the original point. The tragedy of this world is when people live a life of a circle. They just go and come back to where they are, go and come back to where they are. They're not really heading anywhere. Every day is like the day before. They eat and sleep. They earn and spend. And really, their life is heading nowhere. So the samach, in a way, is a symbol of a pathetic life, of a sad life, the life of an ant. An ant which just provides for its young and then disappears, and then its offspring does the same. That should not be the life of a human being. The samach, the circle, is not good. It's not desirable in a spiritual life. In the physical world, however, the whole world is circles. The whole world is cycles. All of nature is a cycle which repeats itself. Circles, revolutions which repeat themselves. The universe is full of circles, of orbits, of planets, which by and large are spheres. And in general, the circle is part of the Gashmiistic world, the idea of the cycle that repeats itself. As a matter of fact, the first samach in the Torah is Shem ha'echad tishain, hu ha'sayvei ves kol eretz ha'chadila, a pasuk which describes saviv, going in a circle. And it describes the rivers, the great rivers of the world, which flow in what is basically a cycle, a continuing cycle of water, evaporation, and new rain. So that samach is wonderful for the physical world, but not desirable for the spiritual world. And therefore, in Ma'aseh Bereshis, there is no samach. Therefore, in behukosi teilechu, it would make sense that there is no samach. The samach appears at the beginning of the kinnis of Tisha B'Av, at the averos of Slachna and Suru. This is an explanation which I had once heard. It made a rashim on me and positive, a very strong impression. The idea that a person should not be repeating everything he has done. A person should be learning from what he did and constantly be growing, certainly, God forbid, not regressing. Rav Druk, on the other hand, brings a different message with the letter samach. And he brings, I believe, as well from the Sefer Rokach, that the letter samach symbolizes something quite positive. Birchas kayanim, the Nesias Kapayim, the kayanim, which the kayanim bless the people, which contains in it 60 letters. Samach, 60 letters. What is so unique about Birchas kayanim? Says the Rokach, in behukosi you will be blessed. If you go in my chukim, it's a condition. If you will follow the laws of the Torah, then you will be blessed. That does not include the samach. Birchas kayanim is above that. Birchas kayanim is an unconditional blessing. It's a blessing even without the in behukosi even without deserving it. That's what's special about the bracha of a kayin. We can add explanation to this. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu's job is to judge the world. Kaviyachol HaKadosh Baruch Hu set his heavenly bezdin as a judge on human beings' actions. And therefore blessing which comes from heaven comes based on that judgment. Blessings which come through people, however, are different. A human being is not supposed to judge his fellow human being. A human being is certainly not supposed to punish or withhold favor from another human being. So that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu allows Kayanim to give a bracha, it's unconditional. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu's blessing through the Kayanim in behukosi is conditional. That's from heaven. The samach is separate from that, is independent of that. And so, although, as in our first part, the letter samach talks about a cycle which has nothing to do with growth, Kayanim is also something that has nothing to do with growth. It's a blessing. It's a bracha. It's a blessing which HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives through Kayanim. And it has nothing to do with the person's growth. A person who goes to Nesias Kapayim, as Shulchan Aruch says, pays attention to be makabel God's blessing through the Kayanim, he has that wonderful bracha. And that's why Birchas Kayanim, Nesias Kapayim, is a very special bracha. That's why it's a refuah for a bad dream, in the case where a bad dream has a negative meaning. And in general, going to Birchas Kayanim, being part of Birchas Kayanim is a wonderful opportunity for bracha. So this is, I guess, a short 8-minute idea of the letter samach. There is much more to be said. Mitzvah Hashem, we'll get to it someday, probably on a Motzei Shabbos. Let me turn to another topic. My discussion so far was the first part of the parsha, the part of in behukosi the positive. Following that is the Teichacha, which talks about the punishments which have unfortunately befallen Klal Yisrael in our centuries of Galus. The Teichacha ends with Eila HaChukim HaMishpatim VaTorah Asher Nasan Hashem Beinai Uvein Bnei Yisrael B'Har Sinai B'Yad Moshe. It ends by referring to everything that has been said as having been given on Har Sinai B'Yad Moshe. The word Yad Moshe appears many, many times in the Torah. Zos HaTorah, we say, Asher Tziva Hashem B'Nei Yisrael B'Yad Moshe. We have in the beginning of Sefer Devarim, Asher Tziva Hashem B'Yad Moshe B'Nei Yisrael B'Avrei Moav. What does B'Yad Moshe signify? What does that refer to in the hands of Moshe? The derech of the Nitziv in his extraordinary Hamikdavar on Chumash is to reveal to us the meaning of many code words in the Torah. Many times the Torah uses an expression many times, and it's got to have some deeper meaning, some significant meaning. The Nitziv has this incredible power to reveal, and throughout Chumash keep on referring back to his yisoid in meaning of words. In the case of Yad Moshe, the Nitziv refers us to an idea which is found in the Gemara, Masechtas Nedarim, I believe it's Daf Lamed Ches, where the Gemara says on Psalacha that the Pupula Shel Torah, the ability to dig out Torah, so to speak, Psalacha is etch out the Luchais, the ability to dig and be Mechadish Kedushay Torah, Pupula Deraisa, that power was given not to Klal Yisrael, but to Moshe Rabbeinu specifically. The Gemara says that at some point, Moshe Rabbeinu nahag b'Tayvas Ayin, and he gave it to Klal Yisrael. But the power of Pupula D'Oraisa was given specifically to Moshe. The Rush in the Durham calls it Havana v'Charifus, a understanding in a sharp way, to see all the wisdom of Torah, through pupula d'oraisa, which comes only through hurting, through hard work in understanding Torah. That is biyad Moshe. At the end of Parshas behukosi, we have a pasuk which is found with slightly different words at the end of Bamidbar. Both the book of Vayikra and the book of Bamidbar end with a reference to Eila HaMitzvahs. All the aforementioned have been the mitzvahs Asher Tziva Hashem. However, there's a difference. In Vayikra it ends, Asher Tziva Hashem es Moshe b'nei Yisrael b'Har Sinai. It mentions Mount Sinai. At the end of Bamidbar it ends, Eila HaMitzvahs Asher Tziva Hashem b'yad Moshe b'nei Yisrael b'Har Sinai. It says, instead of Har Sinai, b'yad Moshe. And then the Siv explains, the Har Sinai are the things that were given to Moshe to be taught to Klal Yisrael. And until the end of his life, that's all Moshe Rabbeinu taught Klal Yisrael. At the very end, Bamidbar ends, and Vayikra and Devarim rather begins with Biyad Moshe, with the Pupula d'Oraisa, which was now called Klal Yisrael. The Tzid mentions it here. He mentions it at the beginning of Devarim. We all know Devarim is Mishneh Torah, a review of Torah. What review of Torah? The Jews spent the whole 40 years in the Midbar reviewing Torah. They did that all the time. The answer is that now Moshe Rabbeinu, Hayom Moshe Be'er es HaTorah, as I said, Be'er is a wellspring. For the 40 years, Moshe Rabbeinu taught what he received at Sinai. At the end of the 40 years, he taught them Pupula d'Oraisa. He taught them the Torah is a wellspring of Chiddush. It's something which a person, through proper amelus and following the rules of Pupula d'Oraisa, can accomplish through his Pupula d'Oraisa. This is the site of the Nitziv. And the Nitziv adds that Pupula d'Oraisa is crucial for Torah in Golus. When Klal Yisrael goes to Golus, doesn't have a central Sanhedrin, there's a tremendous need for Pupula d'Oraisa. Torah has to be a living Torah. A Torah that has chidush. That as a person sits for hours figuring it out, struggling, hurting, and trying to delve deeper into Torah. This idea that it's needed for Galus is merumah, is hinted at the end of the last Navi's Nevuah, Malachai, who ends with Zichru Torahs Moshe Avdi, Asher Tziva Oisai B'chayrev Al Kol Yisrael. Now, remember the Torah of Moshe, my servant, Asher Tzivisi Oisai B'chayrev. Those words are extra. Which I commanded him in Charev. Of course, we all know Moshe was commanded with the Torah at Charev. Says that it says, Zichru Torahs Moshe Avdi Asher Tzivisi Oisai. There's something I gave only him at Har Sinai. That's the Pupula d'Oraisa. And as you go to Golus, Zichru Torahs Moshe Avdi. Through Pupula d'Oraisa, you'll have a great hatzlacha in your learning. And the same goes through the history of the Golus. Yoshiel HaMelech, who hid the Aron because he knew Klal Yisrael would go to Golus. He set up a cherish v'hamasker, asher kulam oisei mulchama. He set up the cherish v'hamasker, those who were 1,000 of them, kulam oisei malacha, people that could do the kulam oisei mulchama, those who can do mulchamta shel Torah. Getting back to our pasuk, at the end of the Teichacha, when Klal Yisrael is in Golus, HaKadosh Baruch Hu ends by saying that you need, in order to survive in Golus, to have the chukim ha-mishpatim v'ataris asher nosem Hashem b'einei v'Yisrael b'Har Sinai b'yad Moshe. That was given at Sinai to the hands of Moshe through Pupula d'Oraisa. Pupula d'Oraisa, the chiyus of Torah, the living in Torah, that's the light that lights up a yid during the periods of time that he's in the darkness of Golus. That ability to be a mafalpel in Torah, to allow a Torah to give you strength and energy, that incredible kayach. That kayach is what keeps us going on Thursday nights at Nishmer and in Golus in general. As we prepare for Kabbalah Torah, what better word than to understand these nekudas? And I mentioned a drop in the bucket of what the Nitziv says. I invite you to look at the Nitziv not only in this week's parasha, at the end of Parakavav, but also in the beginning of Devarim, and specifically in the two sections labeled Harchev Davar under the Nitziv. Get a good appreciation of Pupula d'Oraisa, the chiyus of Torah, important to learning. And so, one on the beginning of the parasha and the letter samach, one at the end of the Teichacha, and the words biyad Moshe. And with that, my time for today is up. Looking forward to seeing all of you this evening in Yitzhak Hashem in the Beis Medrash, whichever